Hello, welcome back to another video on why comic books are so addictive. One of the things that I noticed, not that it surprised me because I'm aware of this for a long time, but over the past few weeks, few months, and for sure the past few years, as I spent more time reading the books that I have, reread them instead of buying anything new, it became very apparent to me that many things that I love and thought they were great decades ago aren't so great today. The nostalgia value of them are still very high, but the older me has realized that I love them for a different reason than because they were great. They may be great when I was 15 years old, but now that I'm 48, there are all many of the stuff that I thought was great when I was 15 to 16, 17, and 18 are no longer great, and I'm pretty sure many other collectors probably feel the same way on many things that they love. Um, some people may not admit it. Some people, for example, a lot of people that love Rob Liefeld when they were 15 years old, back in the early 90s, may still love Rob Liefeld for his skills instead of appreciate the joy that they love about him for nostalgia's sake. I hope that makes sense. Um, and for example, I brought out, I thought I had it with me, but I brought out the Iron Man 150 many, many times to show that's my first book and I love it, and I do for nostalgia's sake. But when I reread Iron Man 149 and 150, it is not a great book by any means. Definitely not a great story by any means. For the significance of it, the first time Doctor Doom and Iron Man meet, it was a lackluster kind of story, kind of disappointing. Um, but that does not mean that I don't love it. I'm sure uh, uh, I'm not alone in this, and I would love to hear stories of others where, what is it that you love today for nostalgia's sake that are not all that great compared to what you thought they were 30 years ago. I'd love to hear what people think, or what they have for example. I just gave you an example of, Iron Man 150. And as I was doing a lot of the videos on, first appearances as well as favorite multiple issue storyline, one of the things that become very apparent to me is many of the stuff that were done in the past, anywhere from the 60s through the 70s, I felt weren't done up to their full potential. What I'm trying to say is that, when you look at a Fantastic Four Silver Age run, many agree that's probably the best that Stan and Jack created in the 60s over any other Silver Age title. Even that, as I have mentioned already in many of my videos, many of the stories felt very rushed and poorly paced. The premise of the stories are good, okay? and exciting. Even Fantastic Four 48, 49, 50 with the introduction of Silver Surfer and Galactus is a great story. But I believe that back in the 60s and 70s, the methods and ways of storytelling and the limitation from the head down on keeping the story short kind of handcuffed the creators into fully flushing out the full potential of many stories. Okay, like the Galactus Silver Surfer trilogy. If that was done today, it could have been a 5 or 7 issues epic saga, right? Um, and that's go with many great storylines of the Silver Age, even Bronze Age. I felt that, unlike today, where I feel many stories are stretched out in order to almost like the writers and the artists are milking a simple story into a big saga in order to sell. I don't know. I hate to use the word laziness, but in many ways that's part of my dislike of modern books, because I felt that many creators are choosing the easy path of writing a very simple story and stretch it out into 5-7 issues for the sake of having 7 issues. Meanwhile, the story is fairly simple, in my opinion. Okay, I'm sure many modern readers will disagree, and the reverse is true with the Silver Age and Bronze Age books. Often, every time I read a story, especially a first intro of many characters, usually it's a one issue thing and it's just too short. The introduction is great and it's just not enough there to flush out all the details that they can include. And one of the things that if I was running Marvel or DC, one of the things that I would do is come up with a title that basically retell the classic in the modern way. Okay, so for example, you would take Fantastic Four 48, 49, 50, using the same premise, the same story, but write it and draw it in a different way to expand it, to make it more, trying to find the right word, to make it more complete. Okay, in my opinion, I think that would be awesome. I mean, and it's not as if it's not been done. For those that are familiar with Doctor Strange 169, which is a retold of the origin of Doctor Strange that was drawn by Dan Atkins. Perhaps I will show that book at the end of this video. But the origin was originally told by Steve Ditko in issue, the number escaped my mind. I think it was Strange Tale 121. I had the book. I can pull it up later and compare side by side with the original by Steve Ditko and then the remake, retold by Dan Atkins. And personally, I like both. Okay, I like Steve Ditko, but I felt that the retold by Dan Atkins is fantastic. I like it a lot. The panel layout was better in my opinion, and that's what I'm saying about how many of yesterday classic from the intro of the Silver Surfer or the Inhumans, many of the Fantastic Four, Avengers storyline, even Spider-Man's, I think can be retold, and it would be fun to have a title, a series that take old classic and redo them. It's not a reboot, okay, but they just take the same premise of the story and just using a famous artist, like bring in like Walt Simonson, for example, to do the to retell the story of Galactus and the Silver Surfer with fresh dialogue. I find that often Stan Lee dialogue are kind of clunky. They're fun, okay? Make no mistake, they were not designed. Stan Lee didn't write them for the adult today, okay? He wrote them for the teenagers and kids of the 60s, and they are fun to read. They're still fun for me to read now, but I would love to see a fresh take on a more adult level kind of language. And that's basically it. The idea of this video is, I find that often I go back and look at the stuff that I love with a different eyes, and things changes, and in many ways it gives myself a bigger appreciation for things that stood the test of time. When I read story like the Dark Phoenix saga, the Kree and the Crow war, there are quite a few stories that was written even in the 60s. Maybe one of these days I will flush out a bunch of stories that I felt stood the test of time, where there is no need for any kind of retell. For sure, the Dark Phoenix saga is as great as it can be. It is just as good today as it was 20 or 30 years ago when I first read it. The Kree and the Crow War, Avengers 89 to 96, I think. Great cosmic saga. But so yeah, no doubt, many things stood the test of time. But I find that more so, many stuff that was created in the late 70s through the modern age stood the test of time because of the different style of writing, and the different audience. Because by the late 70s and early 80s, comic books are more geared toward the adult, and more compared to what it was in the 60s and early 70s and mid 70s, where they were still targeting the younger audience, young teens and early teens. And so I would love to see a fresh take on many classic, and bring in some fresh talent, some great new talent, great artists that can elevate the great stuff that the masters, the Kirby, the Ditko, the Lee. So bring in some new talent or existing talent, bring in Neil Adams or Simonson, and give a lot of these classic a fresh take that will elevate their greatness. Anyhow, that's just my idea. I'm pretty sure Marvel and DC is not going to go there. They would rather reboot. They would rather reimagine a different origin for many things before they do some kind of retell of the story that I have in mind. Anyhow, that's it for this video. Enough of my ramblings. I'm losing my voice. Anyhow, thanks for watching. Bye. Okay, so I did pull out that the origin of Doctor Strange, and it was issue 115. I was wrong. I couldn't remember the number, but it's okay. So this is the book, issue 115, and here is the short origin that was done by Steve Ditko. Okay, so here you go. I believe it's like 8 pages, so you can see it gives you a very brief picture of what he used to be, an arrogant surgeon. Okay, they got into a car accident and then lost the use of his hands. And then he seek out a wizard that he overheard that can potentially help him. Like I said, it's a very brief 8-page story. Okay, I think it's 8 pages. Let me count it. But that's it. That's the end of it. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I was right, it's 8. And here is Doctor Strange 169, which basically retell the origin. And this one have 20 pages. Okay. The art by Dan Atkins in this book is just superb. I'm not sure if I have shown this before. I think I did, but it's gorgeous. Just look at that. Let's look at this. Beautiful. Perhaps one of his greatest work. You know, people don't really think much of Dan Atkins when it comes down to being a great artist, because he did a lot of inking. But as you can see, here we are, 5 page into the book, and it's just elaborate on his personality, his arrogance, being a surgeon. And there you go, there's an accident. Okay, beautifully drawn. And finding out he lost the use of his hand. Look at that. And here he going on a mission to find the Magic Man. Beautiful. Let's look at that. Almost have a Bernie Wrightson kind of level of details. But as you can see, this is one of the better retell of a story that I can recall. It take an 8-page short story and expand it into a 20-page epic story. Okay, and I think this is the kind of example that I would love to see Marvel or DC take a fresh approach to some of the great story that was told decades ago. Yeah, there is a way to retell the story and make them great, just like this issue did. Anyhow, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope what I talk about makes some kind of sense. Anyhow, thanks for watching. Bye.